I'm Chris Cooney with the Metro South Chamber of Commerce. You know, looking at the calendar, this is now the 53rd week of these updates, and so I guess we can say a year and a week is where we are today. And we want to thank all of our panelists for being with us in and out of those calls over the last year, especially, you know, as all of the twists and turns occurred. And we want to thank you for being here to help become enlightened and spreading the word about many of the resources that are available and the latest information that's available for small businesses and people in Brockton and the surrounding Metro South region. Just want to thank our panelists again for being available today and for answering questions. If you have questions today, please post a question down in the Q&A section at the bottom, or you can do the chat if you prefer. We'll monitor both of those. And we also ask you to, sorry, I got people coming in. Just ask you to call or contact folks after if you have a question. You know, Margaret and Susan and Eli have all been available during the call, but also after. So I want to thank our partners too in promoting this. We have a number of folks from the Avon Industrial Park Association, also the Bridgewater Business Association, the Brockton Area NAACP, the Campello and Montello Business Associations, Cape Verdean Association, the Easton Chamber, the East Bridgewater Business Association, the Haitians United, the Massachusetts Small Business Development Center, the Norwell, Pembroke, and Randolph Chambers of Commerce, as well as the South Shore Women's Business Network and the Stoughton Chamber of Commerce. So with that said, I want to again welcome you all back. And Mayor, I know we continue to have a lot of updates and things that are happening. So please take it away.
Yeah, no, thank you, Chris, and your team at the Metro South. It's amazing. It's been a year, and the really the resources provided by this call is really a game changer. So thank you for your leadership, Chris. We are back in a red classification. As you know, we were in yellow for 4 weeks. The numbers and metrics are starting to rise, not unique to Brockton, happening throughout the Commonwealth. And we're at 420 loss of life. 420 people have died that were Brocktonians. And our prayers go out to their surviving family members. Total cases overall, 13,000, total 13,000. And current active cases right now, 301 cases. So that's kind of the gloomy bad news that I get every day at 4 o'clock when I get the death count and sick count. And I can't wait for the day that they say there are nobody sick and nobody dying, but we're not there yet. So I want to thank Sue Joss and her team, Dr. Maria Celli. We've had a wonderful partnership up at the Shaw Center, and we've saved lives. There's no doubt about that. And it's a lot of time and a lot of anguish, but we have a shared vision to save lives and educate and inform. There is some hesitancy, as you know, Chris. Different aspects of Brockton are a little apprehensive, so we have to reach out. And DPH has been a wonderful partner. The Baker-Polito administration is helping with DPH, and Andy Robinson is our liaison. And you might remember Andy was an elected school committee member in Brockton many years ago, so he knows the community. And we had a plethora of J&J, the one shot and done that we utilized last Saturday. It was just a Board of Health City Clinic with BEMA and our school nurses. And we did 520 shots that one day. We're doing it again tomorrow. If you're eligible and you want a J&J, you can call my office, go on the city website as well, and we'll register. It's 9 to 5 tomorrow, J&J. And then on Sunday, 9 to 1, but that is going to be the Pfizer shot. So it's all hands on deck. But again, I want to thank Neighborhood Health Center. We would not have the quantity without the partnership of Sue and without really the leadership of President Biden, who designated Neighborhood Health Center as a federal recipient. So the National Guard has been a game changer for us in terms of clinicians. But just to let you know a couple other things other than COVID, right now, if you're a downtown business owner, I'm going to humbly ask you to please go on the city website, brockton.ma.us. The Rapid Recovery Grant, now it's not money, it's state technical assistance that the city utilizes. One component is to get, it's a brief survey. And so they need downtown businesses to respond. So that's my request. If you could please do it. It's going to make a difference for downtown and beyond the confines of downtown. Again, it's brockton.ma.us. We are also actively looking to hire a vaccine coordinator or a vaccine czar. It's a grant that the DPH has given us. That person will be hired for about 6 to 9 months, probably definitely 9 months. And again, it's on the HR website, but we are actively recruiting someone that can reach out to all different ethnic parts of our community. And last but not least, our $35.6 million that we're going to be getting under the rescue plan. We'll be getting it in 2 allotments of about $18 million each. Stephen Lynch, Congressman, our great Congressman, has indicated it should be coming in about 30 to 60 days now. And also, when Senator Markey was here, when Ed Markey was here to tour with Sue and I and Maria Celli and the team up there, he indicated that there's an infrastructure, a substantial infrastructure bill that's coming out from the feds that is going to benefit not just Brockton, but the Commonwealth. I mean, we're talking millions and millions, if not billions of dollars. So Congressman Lynch reached out to me. I did a priority because they're going back to the old earmark form right now. So I gave him some humble requests, but there's significant money. And I just want to, again, thank you, Chris, for your leadership. And again, I'm going to listen and learn today, but again, thank you for what you do.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for ending on a positive note. I'm going to build off of that, if you would, for a minute. I, like many, are seeing the construction going on as spring flowers pop up in Brockton and downtown area. There's buildings popping up seemingly as fast or progressing. And I saw the trailers move in mass to the Trinity site for another 100 units of housing, along with Main Street, 19 Main, I see is underway for construction. Of course, the state building at the end of Belmont is really looking good. And the building at the corner of Frederick Douglass and Main at Sycamore is really progressing nicely. In addition to another dozen that have started and moved forward. Anything you can tell us on what's next, or?
Yeah, no. So, you know, Brockton real estate is hot, you know, and developers want to invest in Brockton. They'll get their return, and I get that, but we're going to get an increased tax base. We're going to get housing. We're going to get some commercial aspects. So even though downtown has been the focus, and I want to thank the late Mayor Bill Carpenter for his leadership on that. And the fact that I didn't close construction when other mayors did during COVID, I think is reaping benefits. But Montello and Campello, people are really interested in utilizing transit rail. I mean, it makes sense. We have 3 stops. So the tour that Secretary Keneally and Dan Rivera, the former mayor and now CEO of Mass Development, has reaped benefits. It's not just local developers or developers here in the state of Massachusetts. It's people reaching out from New York and New Jersey and Pennsylvania that have read about it and done their due diligence. So things are hopping, and I say this and I mean this. If you're a developer, call me. I want to sit and talk to you. Rob May, my economic planner, will do the same. So let's talk the talk, walk the walk, and see what we can do to have you invest in the city champions.
Well, you as mayor have been incredibly responsive. Anytime I've sent a developer or anybody who's redeveloping, even private business owners that happen to buy a building and want to put some commercial space, and you and your team have been very, very responsive. So thank you for that. Just want to end on infrastructure. I mean, infrastructure, everyone's talking about high-speed internet, they're talking about roads, talking about bridges. In this region, our #1 priority as a business community, and you know this, is water and sewer. It's not just for Brockton, for the entire region. Brockton happens to have the leadership role both on water from DeSal and from Kingston, as well as the reclamation facility, which we used to call sewage treatment, but now is water reclamation facility, which is designed to not only clean the water that's been being discharged from our properties, but then clean it to the point where it's either can be discharged into the river cleaner than it was, or cleaner than the existing river water, or be drank and consumed. Like many countries in this world. So I wonder if this is an opportunity, Mayor, for me to lobby and for you to just kind of keep in your mind. And I know you've kind of seen this before, but is there a way to create a regional entity that puts Brockton at the front of the table, but has some of the communities that are budding, that are partners and part of the region, part of a water and sewer kind of collaborative, like New Haven, like Mansfield, like several communities in New England?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Chris, I'd be naive and I wouldn't be doing my job if we didn't look into that. I will tell you, though, with the amount of construction in the queue right now, over 700 housing, I'm the mayor of Brockton. I'm not the mayor of Easton or Abington or Avon. So I need to take care of our own taxpayers. So again, we need to make sure that, we have the ability to take care of investment in Brockton. But again, We need to also use it as a revenue source, so I get that as well. Talking about a revenue source, I know in the chat there a request was about the marijuana, recreational and medical. And I am proud to say that we did have one open the other day. Vanessa opened hers up, and there are other entities that are going to be opening up in Brockton in their business. You know, if you're pro or con, it's still a business. And the city council right now has a pending matter to increase the number of licenses. I'm not on the city council anymore, so I can't opine on that. But I can tell you right now that we are business oriented here in Brockton under my administration, and that's not going to stop.
That's great to hear, Mayor. Thanks so much for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I want to jump over to Sue. I know she's been involved, very involved with the vaccinations and the testing in the city, and also serving the region now, from what I understand. Sue, welcome.
Thanks, Chris. And I want to thank the mayor for his support on all of our vaccine efforts. It's been just a true partnership and collaboration that's allowed us to get where we are. And I'm thrilled now to hear that the Shaw Center is being used 7 days a week for vaccination. We're using it 5 days a week. So the addition of the Board of Health with school nurses for the other 2 days just really, you know, the faster we can get shots in arms, the faster Brockton can get through this. So I want to share my screen. I'll give you an update on where we are right now on vaccinating. I want to thank Dr. Rick Herman, who is the physician advising the Board of Health on the COVID pandemic, for providing a couple of these slides and give you an update here on where we are from last time I visited. And let me start at the top rather than the bottom. There we go. So this is yesterday's snapshot from the city, and you can find these every day on the COVID website. If you look at the red, yellow, green here in the middle, you'll see that in January we were way up in the red, and this rating is based on the incidence of COVID in the community. So then we had this really steep decline, so we were all hoping that we were plateauing and going to not see another surge, and we did flatten out and actually got into the yellow for 4 weeks. And you'll see the most recent data has us creeping back up in the red, not the way that we were back in January, but enough for us to be concerned that we are starting to see we're at about 30 cases per day in Brockton right now. So that it is a concern, and the positive testing rate is creeping up. We were down in the high 2s when we were down in the yellow. So getting a little bit of surge there. And what I want to show you down in the bottom left corner here is 28% of Brockton residents are vaccinated at this point. 12% are partially vaccinated, and 16% are fully vaccinated. So we're starting to get there, but we really need to hit at least 70% before we can consider that we're heading out of the woods on this. So right now we feel like we're in a race to vaccinate against the surge that seems to be at least starting in Brockton, and we're hoping we can flatten that surge by just vaccinating as fast as we can. Want to give you a sense of what was going on in the other surrounding communities as well. You'll see that 4 of the communities on this chart are in the red as well, and others like Randolph and Avon look like they may be close to going back in the red. So it is surging all around. Some good news on who's getting vaccinated, and this makes sense based on how the state has rolled out the vaccine by age, but you can see that those over 65 really are getting vaccinated, and those age groups are over 70%, which is awesome. And this is Dr. Herman's slide about his view of the path out of path to immunity, he calls it. So you see over here in the gray on the right, this is people who have actually been vaccinated. So he's got it at 25% here. We're actually up to 28%. So a little bit of progress since this slide was done. The little sliver here is people who are presumed to have positive COVID but didn't test positive. Then the darker blue is the confirmed COVID, people have had COVID. And then the estimate is for every person that's diagnosed with COVID, there's 2 who had it but were undiagnosed. So this is the undiagnosed estimate. So if you assume that all of these groups, other than the bright yellow, have some degree of immunity, then we could be as high as 61% of Brockton with some level of immunity. We actually don't think it's that high because some of the blue overlaps with some of the gray, and it's really hard to tease that out. And we don't know how long immunity lasts after having COVID. So some people who had it a year ago, we're not sure that they're still immune from it. So the current vaccination schedule that we're on. So last time I was here, certain workers were just becoming eligible. They continue to be eligible, and I'll show you again who those are. Anyone from phase 1 or any prior phase 2 is still eligible. As of April 5th, which was Monday, the age of eligibility without any medical conditions was lowered to age 55. And the prior requirement that people younger than that had to have 2 medical conditions has now changed into 1 medical condition. And the list of conditions has expanded somewhat. And then the big date, April 19th, vaccination becomes anybody eligible who over the age of 16 is eligible for vaccination on that day. So that's basically everyone who's not age 15 and below. So these slides I showed last time, but just as a reminder of the essential workers who are eligible. This page, basically anyone involved in any aspect of food preparation or food service, transportation workers, water and sewer and utility workers, sanitation, public health workers, the courts, pretty much anyone involved in the court system, and anyone involved in the funeral industry. These are the conditions. If anyone can be a younger age and have just one of these conditions now and be eligible now for vaccination. It used to be all of these conditions, most of these conditions, but you needed 2 of them. They have also added some really important conditions here. So substance use disorder, dementia, HIV, and a couple others have been added. So really many adults are now eligible. There's, I don't know how many people don't have one of these, but it's a decreasing number. So where to go for vaccinations? This is the health center, Shaw's Center site. We are open to any Brockton resident who currently qualifies under the state guideline, as well as anyone who works in Brockton and qualifies, as well as our own patients who may not live in Brockton, but are our patients and qualify. We're offering employer groups of 20 or more an option to book their own employees into this, into the vaccination program, which can give them just an easier way to get first in line on this. So let me know if anyone's interested in that. And the mayor was talking about the Board of Health. So they are now doing weekends at the Shaw Center. I'm not sure if they're going to do both days of every weekend, but they are doing both days this weekend. And the mayor gave you that information. I think the piece he didn't give you is the number at the bottom. The Council on Aging is coordinating the scheduling for them. If you're not a Brockton resident or don't work in Brockton, here's some options for you. First is the state website, which is the vaccine sign up. Your own primary care provider would be a good call, although many of them don't have much vaccine, but a few have some. CVS has a surprisingly good supply of vaccine, so I would definitely try that one. And Walgreens is getting some as well. So that's what I have.
It's great, Sue. Thank you very much for that update. It's kind of underlines the fact that we're not through this yet. And there's a long way to go between 36 or 38% and 70% that your chart showed. So we really need to get vaccinated and remind people to get vaccinated.
Right.
It's not required by law, but it's certainly encouraged. And in order for us to get to that point of, I don't know if you call it herd immunity, but to a critical mass, at least, of keeping it from spreading, we need to get the numbers much higher. So
Right.
thank you for everything you're doing. And as you say, it's great to see the Shaw Center utilized to the point that it is 7 days a week.
Yes, that's great. And I'm going to go off camera, but I'll stay on. So if anyone has any questions, specific questions, feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A, and I'll answer them.
You and I talked about people not getting their second shot, and I saw an article on that recently. People tend to go get their first one and not getting the second one because they're hearing there's more of a reaction or you don't feel well. But it's very minimum from what I understand. But if they do skip it or they're not able to make it, what should they do?
So they should book it as soon as possible. So I just heard from Dr. Herman today that up to 4 weeks after when the second dose was due is fine. And even then the CDC is saying, even if it's later than that, better to get it than not, than skip it if it's late. So the sooner the better on schedule, but definitely better to keep going. And we are seeing just minimal people not wanting the second dose. It's there is a little bit more of a reaction, but the reaction is not COVID. It is your own immune system ramping up to fight off and to develop antibodies. So a little reaction is expected. Some have a little bit more than others. Very few have a reaction that lasts more than a day.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Teresa Lobo Albin is also with us. She's not going to speak, but I want to remind you that she's here and available as a business assistant to small businesses throughout the region, in Brockton and throughout the region. Teresa is an accountant and also speaks fluent Portuguese and is available to talk with small businesses about resources that might be available. And also with an eye towards small business and an eye towards accounting. So I think that's very, very helpful. Thank you, Teresa, for being with us today. I think her contact information is down in the chat section or the Q&A section. So thank you, Lexi and Emma, for posting that. We're now delighted to have with us, speaking of business assistants, is Eli Spahl from the Small Business Administration, who has been providing lots of business assistance since this all started, and it's great to see it continue. The numbers for our region are great in terms of penetration. It was pointed out to me that we'd like to see more in Brockton, and that's why we're having Teresa with us as well, and encouraging people to contact also the Massachusetts Small Business Development Center and others that can help access programs that Eli is going to talk about and has been talking about for the last year. So welcome back, Eli. I'm going to turn it over to you and go from there.
Hey, Chris, good afternoon. Thank you again for having me on the call, and thanks for, putting together this very informative sessions. I can't say it enough that, our work as an agency, would not have been possible if you were not for partners like yourself, the various chambers, business organizations, the municipal government, the state government here in the Commonwealth. Truly amazing work from our resource partners and our lending partners. But as always, I just want to give a quick update on the Ppp program, which is kind of winding down, believe it or not. So you all probably heard that, Congress authorized an extension for the application deadline. So that has been extended. The deadline to apply for a PPP loan has been extended from March 31st to May 31st. So that's, that's great. But as you can see on this particular slide, right, we only got we basically received $285 billion, right? And I shouldn't say only because that's a lot of money. But as you can see here, nationwide, right, there's been almost, and this is a little dated, this slide. The latest report we have is as of April 4th, the $223.5 billion have been already authorized under the PPP loan program. So we're down to the last $50 billion. The good news is that almost 4 million, small businesses have received assistance between first and second draw loans under the, during 2021. But at the same time, right, we are down to the last $50 billion, which we anticipate is going to potentially run out well before that May 31st new deadline. So if we know anyone who's eligible and has not applied for a PPP loan, this is a convertible loan into a grant, assuming you utilize the funds in accordance with the CARES Act, the Economic Aid Act, the American Rescue Plan, and the published guidance on our website and the Treasury's website. But please do apply. Please spread the word. There's nothing better out there than what we have through the PPP loan program. Okay, here in the Commonwealth, it is just amazing. Almost $6 billion as of last week. 73,000 plus small businesses have received assistance. And one of the numbers that I do want to point out here, during 2021 here, you can see that 93%, right, of all loans are for $150,000 or less. So there are two very important numbers with regards to forgiveness on the slide. So loans under $50,000, which is, for the most part, a lot of the sole proprietors, the small businesses, the independent contractors, the mom and pop shops, those individuals that have no employees, right, have received loans of less than $50,000. And overall, 80% of all loan recipients have received loans of $50,000 or less. So important to remember here that anyone who received a loan of $50,000 or less, with regards to forgiveness, that is, only needs to meet one of the three requirements as far as loan forgiveness is concerned. So you have to demonstrate that you used at least 60% of the funds for eligible payroll expenses. The other requirement do not apply to loans under $50,000. So it's very easy, bar to meet, right? And everyone should have 100% of these loans forgiven. Okay, we have a streamlined process, for loans under $150,000. But a quick reminder here that, although there's a good number of loans that are for less than $150,000, as you can see here from the slide, the waivers that are available to loans under $50,000 are not available to loans under $150,000. There was there was talk about a blanket forgiveness at one point in time, and I know still people think that loans under $150,000 are, only need to meet one requirement, but that is not the case. So borrowers that have received a loan of greater than $50,000, not only do they have to meet the 60-40 split between payroll and non-payroll expenses, but also have to meet the retain the full-time equivalents and retain wage and salary levels for the covered period. Okay, so just want to remind everyone about that. Again, the average loan size keeps going down and down and down. Every week we publish one of these reports. The average loan size on this PPP program, excuse me, drops down by a few $1,000s. All right, so on this next slide, since we're talking about forgiveness real quick, just want to share some data here. This is, again, as of April 1st, so it's not the most current data we've got, but the intent of this program was to be 100% forgiven. As you know, that was what Congress intended with it. And you can see here, this is, as far as the 2020 PPP loan volume goes, you can see the 2.4 million of the loans approved, right? Which is almost half of all volume in 2020 has been forgiven. Okay, $209 billion has been forgiven. Okay, there is some loans under review, but you can see here on the slide that the amount that was not forgiven for various reasons, right? It's really less than $1 billion. So just want to encourage, again, I want to encourage anyone who has not taken advantage of this program that this is the time, there's still time, there's still money. Please, by all means, you'd want to apply, spread the word, if you know anyone who has not applied for a PPP loan. The one thing that we didn't perhaps talk about, Chris, here on this meeting is the American Rescue Plan. So one of the things I did want to touch on today's meeting here, and I know that my time is limited, but one of the things I do want to bring up is that the expanded eligibility under the American Rescue Plan to the nonprofit organizations, right? So all 501c entities, right, except the 501c5s, are now eligible for PPP assistance. Okay, so that would be that they're now eligible for a first draw PPP loan, assuming that they meet all other requirements. Okay, so the folks really need to read on the IFR we published, about 10 days or so ago, with regards to this particular plan. And the 501Cs have to meet certain requirements here as far as number of employees and so on and so forth. But this is a great update. Obviously many of these organizations are, experiencing the same challenges as a for-profit. So it's great to have them part of the program. The other thing that I did want to talk about real quick here is the restaurant revitalization grant program. So we did receive through the American Rescue Plan $28.6 billion for the restaurant revitalization program. A really impressive program. We've been all of this week, we've been in calls, learning about it, learning how the agency is going to roll this out. And, just judging by the information that we have received so far, Chris, I think this is by far one of the best programs we've got for the hardest hit, industry. And, our restaurants, our bars, the program is not just limited to those, entities that serve food, right? So, it could be food or drink, right? So restaurants, food stands, food trucks, food carts, bars, saloons, lounges, taverns, you got it. I mean, there is breweries, and there are some, brew pubs, there's definitely some requirements they have to meet there as far as, on-site sales to the public, right? So they have to meet a 33% of the gross receipt requirements. But wineries, distilleries, inns, the one type of entity that does not qualify for the restaurant revitalization fund grant are nonprofits. So even if you are a nonprofit that serves food, you are not eligible for this program. And one piece of clarification we did receive that I do want to share is the requirement for these entities not to be registered on sam.gov. That was a headache and a half by itself, for many of the entities that were interested in the SVOG, the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant Program. Not required for the restaurateurs, which is great. And obviously there's a lot more information. We're going to be putting out webinars with regards to these programs. And obviously in the next program, if time allows, I'll share a lot more detail with the audience. So Chris, again, thank you for having me, and thanks for everything you and the chamber do for the small business community and the Brockton community as a whole.
Thank you, Eli. Thank you very much. We appreciate your input and your consistent guidance throughout this whole pandemic. So one of the questions we received from restaurants and bars and eateries is, can they access all three? Can they access the EIDL advance and loan? Can they access the PPP round 1 and 2, and now this new restaurants program? That's number one. And then number two, can they access it if they already kind of stopped operating because they ran out of money 3 or 4 months ago? Can they reapply and try to keep it going?
Yeah, so the restaurant revitalization grant, right? Anyone who applies for the SVOG will not be eligible for the restaurant grant. And it really is, with regards to the PPP loan program, right? Any money is received, any money is received through the PPP loan program would have to be paid back, okay, from the restaurant fund grant. So that is the one big requirement there. So folks can apply for a PPP loan. They can receive a PPP loan, but that money would need to be deducted. So that's the one requirement. The one critical piece of information we learned during the past week is that folks really have 3 years to use the restaurant revitalization grant money. So they have until March of 2023. Okay, to use this fund, which is great because obviously this grant will be larger than the PPP loan fund, which is really 10 weeks of working capital and payroll costs and what have you not, right? I shouldn't have, I mean, business operating expenses, including payroll, I should have said. Right, so again, 3 years worth of funds is obviously greater than 10 weeks worth of funding. 2.5 months, which the PPP was. So, although that money would need to be deducted from the restaurant grant, still, this is, I think, a very generous program.
It sounds like a better deal, and it sounds like some restaurants who applied for the PPP, received it, maybe even applied for forgiveness, maybe should revisit this and go for this shuttered program and then deduct the PPP out.
The American Rescue Plan speaks to PPP loans received in 2021. So again, we don't have all the details with regards to what's going to happen to those PPP loans received, in 2020, because as you said, many of them have already received forgiveness. So we don't know about that. So not 100% positive what's going to happen to the PPP loans received in 2020, but we know that the 2021 recipients, right, will have to pay back the PPP funds. If they also get the restaurant grant fund.
Okay, that's better actually, because the 2020 isn't going to be held against the new number. It'll just be anything you recently got in the last 4 months, which is probably easier to, at this point, calculate and deduct from this larger grant, which is going to allow you a real long runway to getting back to working. 3 years, that's pretty great. That's good. I mean, we have many restaurants in the city and the surrounding areas that have been impacted by this. So this is great new information. And is the application, forgive me if I missed that, is the application about to go live? Or
so it's about to go live, and it's not going to be, we're just going to announce it today and tomorrow you can start applying. There's going to be a landing page. There's going to be a way folks can ask questions. The information is going to be out in advance before, we open up the application process. So, this is not going to be a surprise to anyone. I think we're learning from the various programs we've had over the last year, right? So we'll provide sufficient information for folks that really gather the documentation they need, the details of what the program is before they can apply. So they can, obviously, that they'll have plenty of time, right? Plenty of time to make a decision and a determination if this is right for them.
Okay, that's terrific information, and I'm having deja vu because I think it was Saturday a year ago that the EIDL all of a sudden got opened, and on Monday it was a mad dash to fill it out and get it in. Here we are again. But this sounds like this one's going to be a little more, prep time for people to get ready.
Absolutely, and there's I know that there may be folks on the line who are familiar with the recent launch of the SVOG program. We launched that on the 8th, right? And already experienced some issues, technical issues with the platform. Hopefully, it's going to be resolved fairly soon, and they're working on it. But we're learning from all of these other programs, and I believe that the agency is going to get the restaurant grant right.
Right.
So if nothing else, I think this one's going to be the winner for us.
All right, Eli, thank you so much. I think there might be a question down below if you have a chance just to kind of take a look at
Absolutely.
it. The contact information. So thank you. So now I'm delighted to have with us Steve McAllister from the United States Chamber of Commerce. Steve McAllister serves the entire, I say East Coast, but from DC North, right? And he's based in Rhode Island, but he's been with us in the past. And as you can imagine, there's a lot going on with the U.S. Chamber. I'm in briefings with them at least twice a week. And there are some real priorities. I don't want to steal his thunder, so I'm just going to hand it over to Steve. Thank you for being here. And first of all, how's the little one doing?
She's great. Thank you very much. She'll be 6 months old in a couple of weeks. So
That's great. Good to hear.
Thank you. Just to hit on what we were just talking about with the restaurant grant program, the U.S. Chamber, we did, and I think someone already plugged it into your chat. We did a webinar on that with the restaurant associations, the National Restaurant Association. So we will continuing to update that as more information goes out. We always refer people to their local SBA office. So that's what we do, but we try to break down these guides to give information as much as possible. So that's one of the resources available to your members for being a member of Chris's chamber here at the Metro South. So, so just to talk about a few things, right now at the top of the heap here is President Biden's infrastructure proposal. So first off, at the U.S. Chamber, we're very excited that this is finally the priority, that we are talking infrastructure. I mean, I've been with the chamber about 8 years now, and since day one, I think it's like, we need a long-term, encompass infrastructure plan. Let's do this. Let's do this. So while we are very excited that, that the talk is there, I'll start with the positive stuff. Obviously, we want to support, roads and bridges. Just like you were talking, Chris, earlier, on sewers, ports, broadband, cybersecurity, infrastructure encumbers a lot. And we really do believe, if done correctly, that the infrastructure bill could be the next stimulus package, because of the jobs it's going to create, the investment it's going to create. There's a lot of our priorities in this. I just listed all those things: ports, airports, but also things like workforce development training is in here. Energy and climate research and development is in there, which we're very excited about. And permit streamlining, which I know your mayor probably would love to see as well. Get these permits out there, build these things, get the revenue in to the city. So we're really excited about that. Now, what's the hang up? Well, just with everything is how you pay for it. So I want to stress, we're at the very beginning of this process right now. So this is the president's proposal. He's kind of put this out there. We're hearing from members of the House and the Senate on this. What is proposed is not what the package will be. So we're at the very beginning of it, but we do have some concerns on how they propose to pay for this, specifically increasing the corporate tax. The chamber, we are not supportive of that. We really do feel that raising the corporate tax makes our U.S. companies less competitive in the global market, the global economy. We also think it could be very harmful to economic growth. So yes, with a new infrastructure package, we would see a lot of growth on this end, but paying it with a corporate tax and then jobs are lost and the economy shrinks on that side, it could really negate a lot of the gains that we're all hoping for. So that's the U.S. Chamber's position on that. So there's going to be lots more discussion going forward on how to do that. We've been coming to the table for years with different ways of how we can pay for it. We always knew this was going to be the question. Everybody knew this was going to be, everyone wants infrastructure. I've never met a congressman who's a congressperson who hasn't said, no, I don't want infrastructure. Everybody wants that, but how to pay for it. So we have talked over the years about more user fees. We even supported a gas tax, private public partnerships. These are all things that we're proposing, that we're supportive of, and getting that out there, because we know you have to pay for it. Another thing we're looking at is right now that the president's plan calls on paying for all this for 15 years. Well, our position is, these are long-term investments. This is like investing in your home. and you go and you get a mortgage for 30 years because you assume your home is still going to be standing in 30 years. So you pay for it over 30 years. So we think one of the things that we could do really is just kind of stretch that out a little bit and maybe pay for it over 30 years instead of 15 years for these long-term investments that we're making in the infrastructure. So we're excited that the topic is out there. We're excited about the potential that it could be there. Again, the devil's in the details, and the fight's always was going to be with everybody was how they're going to pay for it. And the U.S. Chamber's at the table. We were at the table supporting your members and letting them know how this agreement could help or hurt, and that's what we're going to continue to do. So that's kind of like at the top level right now of the big picture stuff that is going on. And again, we think an infrastructure bill could be the next stimulus package. This could be another stimulus for the economy if done correctly. So we're going to continue to work on that. A couple other things that Chris asked me to talk about, I'll hit on, and happy to go into depth on any other issues if you'd like. Is the PRO Act. The PRO Act would have a big impact on your local businesses. If you're a business employer, you need to pay attention. If you're an employer, you need to pay attention to what could happen to the PRO Act. The PRO Act passed the House, so now it is up at the Senate. So what the PRO Act would do is it really changes the way you can organize if a group wants to come in and unionize your employees. It really radically changes that entire process. So I'll give a few examples of what the PRO Act would do. And again, this passed the House, so this is up at the Senate for a vote real soon, for debate at least. Right now, the way that the National Labor Relations Board holds elections to see if your employees want to unionize, that's done in a private ballot. The PRO Act would change that, and that these elections would be out in the open, meaning I would have to raise my hand or keep my hand down, yay or nay, if you want to join the union. So, that really exposes workers to a harassment and intimidation. It really takes away the privacy of the voting ballot. So that is a big change. The PRO Act actually changes that even if the union loses that votes, that the employer still has the responsibility to prove that they did not interfere in that election. So that gives a lot of authority to this National Labor Relations Board. Again, these are unelected officials that have a lot of authority on your business if this comes to it. And if this board disagrees that you did not interfere in that election, they can still certify this union via card check. So that is a big thing. If someone wants to unionize your shop, right off the bat, the PRO Act would require the employers, you must turn over to the unions the home address for all your employees, their home phone numbers, their home cell phone numbers, their personal email addresses, their personal cell phone numbers, their shift locations, and their work schedules. And under the PRO Act, workers cannot opt out of that. So if I am working there and I don't want my employer to share that information to these union organizers, there is no option for me. The employer has to provide this personal information. The PRO Act would also repeal the right to work. We don't have that in Massachusetts, but that's a big part of it as well. They really dip into what is considered an independent contractor. And what the PRO Act would do is they're using the California's very stringent, what they call the ABC test. And we can go into detail if you want that, but it's how they classify independent contractors. And it makes it so groups like Uber and Lyft may not even be able to survive in California. And this would make it national. The other, there's a number of other very concerning things, but this is another one that we're very concerned about, is secondary boycotts. This would now be legal. And what that consider is, so company A, Steve McAllister's company, is in a negotiation or a labor dispute with the labor union. they can protest outside my business because it's a one-to-one relationship. They're upset. We're in negotiations. They protest outside my business. But the PRO Act would make it so secondary activity is legal, which means these union officials, they can do strikes or call for boycotts or picket outside any business that does business with your company that has nothing to do with this labor dispute. For example, they could call for a boycott or protest outside your suppliers, outside your vendors, your banks, your contractors, your insurers, other franchisees. So, this is a wide range of things that would really open up under the PRO Act. So there's other joint employer. We could do a whole hour just on the PRO Act. I just want to frame it this way, that this is really big. It is already passed the House. It is up at the Senate. So that's going to tail into my next topic real quickly here is on the filibuster. So right now, we do not think the PRO Act would pass the Senate because it would not have the supermajority to pass the Senate. So it's going to pause here at the Senate. However, if the filibuster were to go away, things like the PRO Act would go through in this Congress because you would just need a simple majority. So this would be a huge swing that would go in, and it could be a straight party line vote. Now, they're not going to break the filibuster rule over an issue like the PRO Act. They're going to, use it for other issues, voter rights or something like that. That's how they'll test this. But we are developing at the U.S. Chamber a list of legislation that could happen if the filibuster goes away. And we're going to do it on two ways. We're going to show what it could look like now with this Congress, but we're going to look back of 2 years ago when the Republicans were in control and all the stuff that they would have passed if there was not a filibuster, just to show these huge swings. So who's to say that the PRO Act gets enacted this year? All of your businesses have to comply to all these things. You finally learn all the way. You want to be in compliance, and then in a year and a half, the Senate flips. And then not only they get rid of that, but then they bring in some whole new program because it's a whole new thing. So this being unstable for the business community, not being able to know what the next day is going to bring is really hurtful to the business community. So I just wanted to frame a couple of those issues for you.
That's great, Steve. Thank you very much for being here and for being in DC and monitoring these things. Local chambers like us, where you have ties to the state and the region and the city, of course, but don't have the capacity to be in DC. So that's why, this chamber, Metro South Chamber, helped form the U.S. Chamber all those years ago, about 10 years ago or so. And it's great that the U.S. Chamber has the resources and the tenacity and the consistency to be monitoring these types of issues. It's interesting on the 30-year mortgage for infrastructure. I mean, I remember when Governor Romney proposed going from 15 years to 30 years for schools as part of the bonding, and it doubled the number of schools that could be funded in the state of Massachusetts. So that sounds like a pretty reasonable idea. Some of these other ideas that you're talking about, the PRO Act and others, seem to be need a little bit more monitoring and certainly a check and balance. And the filibuster seems to have that mechanism to keep a one vote entity going, swinging this pendulum back and forth so severe. And I'm glad to see the U.S. Chamber is talking a lot more about the common ground and not the polar opposites. And I think this kind of fits in with that dialogue. I also like the fact that you're doing an analysis on if they eliminated the filibuster, how would it have impacted the Republican president versus the Democrats? So really try to get to a common sense analysis of both sides and what would have been at stake. So thank you very much for your comprehensive presentation. And I look forward to having you back here again in the months and weeks and months ahead. So thank you. And now we have time for Susan Whitaker, who was just in a briefing. This is the first time that we've been head to head with the governor's cabinet. Usually it's at 1, but for some reason it got moved to 2. So Susan was there and now she's here. So what did I miss and what did we all miss?
So Secretary Keneally started off sharing some information about just some housing information, just about evictions, that eviction filings are actually down from pre-COVID. So $80 million has been distributed and have helped over 18,000 households in Massachusetts, and we're still getting some additional federal funding to prevent that. So if anyone's in that position, there are programs that can help. So we just want to keep housing stable. The next thing is there's some new updates to the My Local MA campaign. So one thing is businesses can now actually go on the site and they can feature their own stories. And so we would encourage businesses to go ahead and do that. Additionally, there's an affiliation with My Local MA and the Boston Red Sox. So if anyone's going to a Red Sox game this summer, then you might be able to see some My Local MA affiliated there. And also there's going to be a new campaign coming out shortly that's focused specifically to help restaurants. So stay tuned on that as well. Secretary Rosalind Acosta from Labor and Workforce joined the call as well. And she shared some good news that UI claims were down this week, 20,000 fewer claims this week than from last week. However, there was, the bills have gone out now to employers with their UI insurance rates, and many employers have been hit pretty hard, and those bills are coming due now within the next couple of weeks. And so, the feeling there is they're feeling really badly about that, because the legislation was filed last November to try to help avoid this from happening, because initially the plan was to have it, filed in legislation, passed in December, so that businesses, they'd be able to get those rates out there and give businesses, at least 4 months to be able to look at how to pay these bills. And now they're, instead of 4 months, they're actually only have 2 weeks at this point. And the other piece of that is anyone who was impacted by COVID, it didn't go directly to that business. It went into the solvency fund, and then that solvency fund was spread out amongst all businesses. So the solvency fund, as back in March, when that was determined how that was going to be handled, no one anticipated that we were still going to be looking at leveraging that, over a year later. So, really, it's a question now. They're just trying to see what they can do, how they can help. They recognize that, businesses are hurting, and they knew all along the plan was, even when they were freezing the rates, when they were putting the legislation forward, that, that it was the rates were going to increase, but that it wasn't going to increase so exponentially. But now they had no idea until they were able to process the rates to know what kind of impact it was going to have for each individual company. And now they're seeing what impact that's having for various employers. And so they're at the drawing table now. So unfortunately, we don't have any real solutions, but they are realizing that it's a problem and they're trying to address that. Larry Andrews from the Mass Growth Capital Corporation shared that they are 94% of the way through their funding, with appropriating their funding. However, there are some additional funds that are going to be coming out. And the message that he was delivering was to small businesses to make sure that your financials are in order, because there are going to be additional, federal funds that are going to be funneling down and coming out. And so you just want to make sure that you have all your financial documents in order, so that when these grant opportunities open up, you'll be well positioned to do that. And he encouraged businesses to reach out to his organization and the technical, small business technical assistance, as well as the MSBDC groups, Additionally, the grants that are coming out maybe towards the end of the month that are going to be through his organization are going to be focused on crowdfunding, equity programs, and some helping with the digital divide, some online tools and marketing programs. So he didn't have any further information on that, but that was something that he just was encouraging businesses to, get their finances in order. So that was the bulk of the call. And, the plan is to have a good weekend.
Great. So nice way to end it. We're right at 3 o'clock. But I did want to just reiterate that the My Local, last time we were on this call, Margaret, we asked Margaret if we might receive anything, and she kiddingly, winked. And we did. We did end up getting a part grant for the My Local web design and redesign. We'll be incorporating that whole initiative the state had started through the Mass Office of Travel and Tourism into our 100-page book for business, which gets mailed to every single business in 20 communities. And then also we're going to incorporate it into our new web design, which should be unveiled right around Labor Day. We'll be working with a local company to update our website and brand it, co-brand it with My Local. So it'll hopefully have a wow factor. And we couldn't have done that, obviously, without you, Susan, and your support, and Margaret, and MOBD, and the Mass Office of Travel and Tourism. So thank you. The last thing I'll mention is the federal, on the unemployment, that is a shock for a lot of companies. I mean, hearing about it repeatedly and texts and emails, I'm glad that they're back at the table. Several of my colleagues and I have been talking about the need to advocate for maybe use of some of the federal funds the state received for this purpose to try to soften the blow and make it more gradual. So hopefully, we can say that to you and you can bring it back. We'll also be lobbying our elected officials and whatnot.
Yeah, other states have done that, and that was even addressed on the call, is brought up as one of the solutions. And they obviously said, Secretary Acosta said, the fund was not healthy to begin with, and that also needs to be addressed moving forward. So yeah, there's a lot of work to be done around that, but like I said, it's not falling on deaf ears.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. And you hit on one more thing that suddenly escaped my mind. I'm getting COVID mind, I think, like a lot of people. But it is great to see you, and thank you for the report. My understanding is that we won't have a conflict at the next meeting, which is going to be April April 30th. Yes, Friday, April 30th at 2 o'clock. And we have invited the governor. As we know, he was invited and he was confirmed for last May. And we've invited him for this next meeting. We've gotten some positive responses from his office, but not a confirmation yet, being entirely transparent with you. But there is a chance that he will be with us on the 30th, which will be our next call. So again, I want to thank you all for being with us. This will be recorded, or is recorded, and will be posted. As you know, you all receive this afterwards, as well as the information in the chat and answering the questions and all of that in the recording. So if you have any other questions beyond that, please reach out to any one of us on the panel or any of the chamber staff, Teresa as well, and let us know how we can be of service and help and guidance. So want to thank you one and all for being with us, and we look forward to seeing you next time. There are a bunch of events coming up in terms of networking and whatnot that the chamber, Metro South Chamber, is holding. So please check out the action report for upcoming dates. We'd love to see you and eventually see you in person. So again, on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce, thank you very much and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. 70 degrees tomorrow, folks. Please get outside and enjoy. Take care.
Thank you, Chris.
To Chris.
Thank you.